There was something almost cruel about how untouched Katerina Villari looked, even when everything around her was chaos. Her office, perched at the top floor of the Villari Global Headquarters, buzzed with tension, assistants scrambling, executives fidgeting with tablets, silence falling in waves as soon as her heels clicked on the marble. Katerina didn't care. She moved like she owned time itself. Because she did. Billionaire, tech mogul, international enigma, Katerina could have anything, do anything, and everyone around her acted accordingly. Everyone except her assistant. Livia Montero walked 3 steps behind her, tablet in one hand, stylus in the other, sharp eyes taking in every detail Katerina refused to acknowledge. Meetings rescheduled, reports overdue, scandals avoided. Livia kept her world spinning. And yet, Katerina never thanked her. Not once. "You're late," Katerina said, without turning around, as she swept into the executive boardroom. "We're right on time," Livia answered, voice calm, expression unreadable. She stepped forward and placed the tablet before her boss with a practiced grace, their fingers brushing for a second too long. Katerina's eyes flickered, but she said nothing. The room was filled with the most powerful people in her empire, men in tailored suits, women in sleek dresses, all waiting for a signal to speak. But Katerina just stared at the glass wall for a moment, watching the city blur below. "Bored," she muttered, almost to herself. "You're always bored," Livia said under her breath. Katerina's head turned slightly, sharp eyes catching the assistant's reflection in the glass. "Careful," she said. Livia didn't flinch. Katerina turned back to the room and raised a hand. "I'll date the next person who walks in," she said suddenly. The words dropped like a bomb. A few chuckles broke the silence. Her CFO looked up, startled. One of the executives blinked like he hadn't heard correctly. "Excuse me," someone asked. Katerina's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You heard me. I'll date whoever walks through that door next. I'm sick of predictable dinners and curated profiles. Let the universe pick." It was a joke. It had to be. Livia rolled her eyes and looked away. She'd seen Katerina pull stunts before, buying out a company mid-flight, firing a department head for using Comic Sans, but this was petty, even for her. "That's ridiculous," Livia said flatly. Katerina didn't look at her. "Is it?" And then the door opened. Slowly. Every head turned. Every breath caught. And Livia felt her blood freeze when she realized she was the one standing in the doorway. She'd stepped out just minutes ago to take a call from legal. And now, re-entering as the room stared at her like she'd committed a crime, she understood. She was the next person. The room was silent. A long, stretched silence that felt like it might tear in half. Katerina didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Livia now. Her assistant. Her shadow. The woman who knew all her secrets and never blinked. But this time, Livia blinked. "You're not serious," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. Katerina didn't answer immediately. She walked toward Livia slowly, the click of her heels sharp against the marble floor. When she stopped in front of her, just inches away, the air thickened. "I said what I said," Katerina replied. Her voice was cool, but her eyes betrayed something else. Something like confusion. Or was it fear? Livia stared at her, lips parted, disbelief etched across her features. She didn't back down. She never had. "This isn't a game," she whispered. "It never is with me," Katerina said. For the first time since she'd built her empire, Katerina didn't have control of the moment. Because Livia, sharp, stubborn, and unexpectedly radiant in that tailored navy blue dress, had become the one variable she hadn't calculated. And the room, filled with people who usually worshipped or feared her, was now a background blur. The only thing Katerina could see was the woman in front of her. Livia, who was still staring at her like she couldn't decide whether to slap her or kiss her. Then Livia did the unthinkable. She smiled. Just a little. Just enough to twist something deep in Katerina's chest. "Fine," she said, stepping forward, her voice dangerously low. "Then date me. Let's see how long you last." Gasps. Murmurs. Shock painted across every face in the room. But Katerina didn't move. She couldn't, because for the first time in years, she was the one who felt cornered. And Livia? Livia had just taken the lead. The room didn't breathe. No one moved, no one spoke. Katerina stood there, still as stone, while Livia held her gaze with the calm arrogance of someone who just knocked a queen off her throne. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It was a joke, a passing comment meant to amuse, distract, control the room like she always did. But Livia, with her perfectly timed return and her infuriating composure, had flipped the entire moment on its head. And Katerina had no idea what to do with that. "You're serious?" she asked, softer than before. Livia tilted her head, dark curls falling over one shoulder. "I thought you were." Around them, executives started pretending to check emails, shuffle papers, anything to escape the unbearable electricity pulsing between the two women. "This meeting is over," Katerina said abruptly, turning her back to everyone except Livia.
"Now."
Chairs scraped. Footsteps scattered. No one dared to question her. Not even the CFO, who usually lingered for last-minute follow-ups. Within seconds, the room emptied like a storm had passed. But the storm remained, in the form of two women, alone in a high-rise boardroom, surrounded by glass and silence and too many unsaid things. "You shouldn't have done that," Katerina said, her voice sharper now. Livia stepped forward, slow and deliberate, as if every step was a declaration of war. "You made the rules, Katerina." The use of her first name burned. Livia never used it. It was always Ms. Villari.
"Boss. CEO.
Ice Queen. But Katerina said nothing. Because deep down, something inside her wasn't angry. It was awake. "Do you want to fire me?" Livia asked, stopping just inches away. "Would that make this easier?" "Don't tempt me." "I think I just did." There was no smile this time, no teasing glint. Just tension. Pure, magnetic tension that seemed to vibrate in the air between them. "You don't know what you're playing with," Katerina warned. Her tone was low now, not quite threatening, but not safe either. Livia's eyes narrowed slightly, her voice cool. "Neither do you." The elevator dinged in the distance. Somewhere far below, the building kept running. But here, in this sealed world of marble and glass, time had stilled. Katerina looked at her for a long moment, taking in the curve of her jaw, the fire in her eyes, the way her breath never quickened even under pressure. "You think you're ready for this?" she asked. "You think you can handle being involved with someone like me?" Livia didn't flinch. "I've been handling you for 2 years." The words landed hard. Katerina's lips parted slightly, but no reply came. Because she couldn't deny it. Livia had seen her at her worst. 3 a.m. tantrums, savage decisions, the collapse of deals, the destruction of partnerships. And yet, she never left. She never even faltered. Maybe that's why this was dangerous. Livia knew her. Not the media version. Not the billionaire. The woman. The messy, ambitious, lonely woman beneath it all. "This doesn't have to mean anything," Katerina said suddenly. "We can pretend. One dinner. Just to shut everyone up." "You don't do anything that doesn't mean something," Livia said. "So, don't lie to me." Her voice wasn't accusatory. It was quiet. Honest. Katerina's throat tightened. "Are you really saying yes?" "I'm saying I'm tired of pretending I don't feel anything when you look at me like that," Livia whispered. "So, either walk away or kiss me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Katerina stepped forward. Barely a breath between them now. Her hand rose. Not to touch. Not yet. But hovering near Livia's cheek like the thought of contact alone might unravel everything. "I never lose," she murmured. "Then maybe it's time you did," Livia whispered. And that was it. The dam cracked. Katerina's mouth found hers in a kiss that was anything but careful. It was desperate, explosive, weeks, no, years in the making. Her hands tangled in Livia's hair, and Livia gripped her waist like she'd been waiting for this exact moment to lose control. It was heat and resentment and desire and frustration crashing together in a collision that neither of them saw coming. When they finally pulled apart, breathless and stunned, Katerina looked at her like she was trying to piece herself back together. "This changes everything," she said. Livia's eyes didn't waver. "Good." But just as quickly, Katerina pulled away. The mask slipped back on.
Cold.
Guarded.
Distant.
"One date," she said. "We start there. Nothing more." Livia raised an eyebrow. "Whatever you need to tell yourself." She turned and walked out of the boardroom, heels clicking like a countdown to something neither of them could stop. Katerina stood there alone, chest rising and falling like she'd just run a marathon. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel bored. She felt terrified. Katerina Villari didn't sleep that night. Not that she ever really did. Her nights were typically consumed by restless thoughts, glowing screens, and the endless weight of decisions no one else could make. But this time, it wasn't numbers or mergers or shareholders keeping her awake. It was Livia. Livia, with her quiet fire and unreadable smirk. Livia, who had kissed her back like it meant something. Livia, who had walked out of that boardroom with her head held high, like she hadn't just turned Katerina's world inside out. It wasn't supposed to matter. Katerina had dated before. Models, entrepreneurs, heiresses, women who wore elegance like perfume and never stayed long enough to get past her surface. Livia was different. Too close. Too smart. Too dangerous. And now she was in Katerina's head like a glitch she couldn't fix. At 4:12 a.m., Katerina was sitting on her balcony, barefoot, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. The city lights stretched endlessly below, cold and glittering, much like her. But for once, she didn't feel like the one looking down. She felt exposed, vulnerable, unbalanced. She hated it. When she walked into the office the next morning, nothing showed. Her dress was flawless, her hair immaculate, her face unreadable. But inside, she was a chaos of what if and what now. Livia was already there, typing on her tablet, her usual morning rhythm undisturbed. Except Katerina noticed the way her fingers paused, barely, when she entered. "Good morning," Livia said without looking up. "Your 8 o'clock was rescheduled. CFO wants to push the Q3 review to Friday." "Oh, and your driver will pick you up at 7:30 tonight." Katerina blinked. "Tonight? For the date." Livia finally looked at her, eyes steady, tone neutral. "You did say one date. I assumed you'd want to control the narrative. Or were you planning to cancel?" Katerina stared at her. "You arranged it? Wouldn't be the first time I made your reservations." Livia's mouth twitched, like she was fighting the hint of a smile. Katerina crossed her arms, leaning against her desk. "You're enjoying this." "A little." "Careful, Montero. I'm not afraid of you." And that was the problem. Everyone else was. That's why they obeyed, flattered, feared. Livia didn't. She never had. And now, after that kiss, Katerina couldn't stop thinking about that kiss. The dynamic had shifted in a way she couldn't control. She hated losing control. 7:30. Katerina repeated.
Fine.
"Where?" "That's a surprise." "I don't do surprises." "You do now." Livia returned her attention to the screen, and that was it. Conversation over. Katerina should have been furious. Instead, she felt something unsettlingly close to her anticipation. When 7:30 arrived, she was in the back of her car, scanning the city through tinted windows as the driver followed instructions Livia had left. They passed the usual upscale spots, Michelin-starred restaurants, rooftop lounges, the kind of places Katerina frequented with people who never looked her in the eye. But they didn't stop. Instead, they crossed the river, drove past neon-lit streets, and pulled up in front of a modest, warmly lit place nestled between two bookstores. It was nothing like Katerina expected. Inside, it was intimate, rustic, filled with the scent of garlic and basil. A jazz trio played softly in the corner. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. And there, already seated at a window table, was Livia. She wasn't in workwear. She wore a deep burgundy dress that clung in all the right places, her curls softer than usual, lips painted with something bold and dark. Katerina stopped for a second. She had never seen her like this. Or maybe she had never looked. "You're late," Livia said as Katerina approached. "I'm never late. First time for everything." Katerina sat, crossing her legs, letting her eyes roam, not subtly, over Livia's figure. "This isn't your usual style. Neither is dating your boss." A beat passed. Then both women smiled, slow and wicked, like they were playing a game neither was willing to lose. The waiter arrived. Livia ordered without hesitation. Katerina let her. She was used to commanding rooms. This table felt like a new battlefield. "So," Livia said once the wine arrived, "what now? We pretend we don't hate each other for a night?" Katerina leaned forward, fingers grazing the stem of her glass. "I don't hate you. You tolerate me. It's not the same. I don't tolerate people who get under my skin." "Then what am I?" "A problem. And you like problems." The tension between them was thick again, not hostile, but alive. Katerina didn't respond. She sipped her wine and watched the way Livia's throat moved when she did the same. "You planned this," Katerina said. "You knew exactly what you were doing when you walked into that room yesterday." "And you didn't?" "I was bluffing." "You're not bluffing now."
No.
She wasn't. The wine was warm, but it wasn't what made Katerina's skin burn. It was Livia. The way she spoke, moved, looked at her. Like she wasn't intimidated. Like she wanted to see what would happen if she pushed just a little further. "Tell me something," Livia said suddenly. "Why me?" "You walked through the door. Out of everyone. Why did you freeze when it was me?" Katerina exhaled slowly. "Because I've imagined it before."
You.
Standing there, saying yes. Livia's lips parted. For once, she didn't have a comeback. And Katerina? She finally felt like she'd regained the upper hand. "Dessert?" she asked. "Or do we skip straight to the part where this gets complicated?" Livia stared at her for a moment that stretched too long. Then slowly she smiled. "Let it get complicated." Livia wasn't sure what exactly she expected to feel when she got home after the date. Maybe regret, maybe guilt, maybe nothing at all. But what she felt was worse. The terrifying thrill of knowing she had started something she couldn't stop. She paced her apartment like it was too small for the heat still crawling under her skin. Every word Katerina had said, every look across the candlelit table, every moment that her boss, let her armor crack just enough for something real to leak through, played on a loop in her mind. She had kissed Katerina Villari. And worse, Katerina had kissed her back like she meant it. Livia leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. This was the beginning of a shift, and she knew that from the way her pulse still jumped at the memory of Katerina saying, "Because I've imagined it before."
You.
Standing there, saying yes. It wasn't a lie. Livia had imagined it, too. And now she was in trouble. The next morning, she arrived early like always. Her fingers flew over her tablet screen, reviewing contracts and prepping briefings. She tried to lose herself in work, in clean lines and controllable details. But then she felt it. That magnetic pull. Katerina entered the office with her usual quiet power. Dark blue suit, high heels, not a strand of hair out of place. Livia looked up. Just for a second. Their eyes met. And just like that, the air changed. "Morning," Katerina said, walking past. Livia answered with a simple, "Good morning." Professional.
Cool.
Pretending. But her voice didn't quite hold. Katerina paused at her office door. "You'll join me in the car at 11. Meeting at the Skyview property. Bring the Moranti contracts." Livia nodded. "Already uploaded to your drive." "Of course they are." Katerina disappeared into her office without another word. Livia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. At exactly 11, she slid into the back seat of the sleek black car beside Katerina. The partition was up, no driver listening. No witnesses. For a moment, silence reigned. The city blurred by as they drove, but neither of them looked out the window. Instead, they both stared forward. About last night, Katerina began. Don't, Livia cut in. Katerina turned to her. Livia didn't flinch. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't reduce it to strategy or damage control. I wasn't going to. Livia raised an eyebrow. Really? Katerina hesitated. Then, it wasn't just a moment. You know that. Then say it. Say what? Say it mattered. Silence.
Sharp. Heavy.
Katerina's jaw tightened. She looked straight ahead, as if the city might offer her a way out. I don't do vulnerability, she finally said. I don't do chaos. Livia's laugh was low and humorless. Then you never should have kissed me. Maybe I shouldn't have. The words were soft.
Honest.
Painful. Livia felt them like a slap. But she didn't look away. But you did. Their eyes met again. And this time, neither looked away. What are we doing, Livia? Katerina asked. There was a crack in her voice, small but real. You're my assistant. This is reckless. Unprofessional. Dangerous. Then stop it. I don't want to. The confession sat between them, bare and trembling. Livia's heart slammed against her ribs. Then maybe, she said quietly, you should stop trying to control it. The car pulled into the Skyview property gates, but neither woman moved. They just sat there, inches apart, breathing the same thick air, knowing they were already in too deep. At the meeting, Katerina was sharp as ever, commanding, strategic, flawless. Livia stood beside her, stone-faced and efficient. No one in the room suspected a thing. But underneath the surface, every word exchanged between them buzzed with double meaning. When the client commented on their seamless partnership, Katerina didn't flinch. But Livia caught the tiniest twitch at the corner of her mouth, like a smirk trying not to exist. The meeting ended. Back in the car, they didn't speak. Not until they pulled up in front of Katerina's penthouse. Come up, Katerina said. Livia blinked. Excuse me? We have work to finish. At your place? Is that a problem? Livia considered saying yes. She considered reminding her of ethics, appearances, boundaries. But instead, she said, give me 10 minutes to grab my laptop. Katerina nodded once. Livia arrived 13 minutes later. Katerina opened the door in bare feet and a black silk blouse, sleeves rolled up. The view behind her, the glittering skyline, paled in comparison. Wine, Katerina offered, already walking away. I thought we were working. We are. Livia set up her laptop on the massive marble kitchen island. Katerina leaned over beside her, reading documents, pointing at clauses, arguing about risk. But as the hours passed, their shoulders began to brush. Their voices softened. The work dissolved. And at one point, Livia reached for a pen just as Katerina did, and their hands touched. They didn't pull away. This is stupid, Katerina whispered. Then let's be stupid, Livia replied. And this time, when they kissed, it wasn't chaotic. It was slow.
Deep.
It was Katerina's hand sliding into Livia's hair and Livia's fingers curling at her waist. It was soft moans and sighs caught between lips. It was permission. But when they broke apart, Katerina didn't smile. She looked almost afraid. Don't fall in love with me, she said. I won't, Livia promised. But both of them knew she was lying. Katerina avoided her reflection as she passed the floor-length mirror near her bedroom. Her lips were still tingling, her chest still tight. Her hands, those same hands that signed billion-dollar contracts and crushed competitors with a flick of her wrist, had trembled when they slid into Livia's hair. That had never happened before. Not even once. She stepped into the bathroom and turned on the cold water, pressing her wrists beneath the faucet. Still not enough. Nothing was. Livia had left an hour ago, silent but unreadable, laptop under her arm and a single glance before disappearing into the elevator. Katerina hadn't stopped replaying that look. It wasn't desire. Not only. It was something closer to ache.
She knew that look.
She'd seen it in mirrors during her loneliest nights. And she hated that Livia wore it because of her.
Don't fall in love with me, she had said.
And Livia had lied. Not with her words. Katerina had learned to read lies behind eyes. And Livia's had betrayed her completely. Still, she'd let her go. Because if Livia stayed any longer, Katerina would have said something she couldn't take back. Like stay. Like I need you. Or worse, I feel something too. She would not go there. She couldn't afford to. Livia deserved someone soft, someone who made room for her light and her ambition. Katerina Villari was not soft. She was all sharp edges and locked doors. And she wasn't about to pretend otherwise. Across the city, Livia stared at her bedroom ceiling, fully dressed, heart hammering. Her lips still tasted like wine and forbidden things. She had kissed her boss again. This time willingly.
Desperately.
With no one watching. And when Katerina whispered, "Don't fall in love with me," something inside her cracked. Because it was already too late. She had worked beside that woman for 2 years, knowing her brilliance, her cruelty, her loneliness. And somehow, despite every warning sign, Livia had let herself want more. Not just the occasional heated look or the sharp thrill of verbal sparring. She wanted the version of Katerina she'd seen last night, the one who kissed her like she was terrified of what she felt. The next day, Katerina was nowhere to be found. Livia waited at her desk, answered emails, took calls. But no footsteps echoed through the corridor. No sarcastic remarks. No biting glances. Just absence. At 4:17 p.m., a text arrived. From Katerina. Cleared my day. Don't need you this afternoon. Go home. Livia stared at the message. No explanation. No follow-up. Just cold dismissal. Typical. Except it hurt now in a way it never had before. Katerina sat alone on the rooftop of an unfinished Villari property, legs dangling over concrete. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't check it. She didn't want to see Livia's name. She didn't trust herself.
Not after what had happened last night.
Not after the way Livia had looked at her. Like she could fix her. Katerina didn't want to be fixed. She wanted to be left alone, in control. But Livia made her feel, and Katerina hated feeling things she couldn't regulate. She watched the sky turn from steel gray to orange, the city lights blinking to life below. Somewhere, Livia was probably trying to understand her silence. And Katerina didn't know how to explain the truth, that she had no idea what to do with the way Livia made her feel human. 3 days passed. No contact. No texts. No meetings. Livia's messages went unanswered. The silence became deafening. She wasn't just Katerina's assistant anymore, and now that they had crossed that line, the wall between personal and professional had become unbearable. On the 4th day, Livia snapped. She stormed into Katerina's office without knocking, slamming the door shut behind her. Katerina was standing by the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. What the hell is this? Livia demanded. Katerina didn't turn. You're out of line.
No. You are.
4 days of silence? After everything you said? After everything you did? You kiss me back, Katerina said coldly. So, you don't get to lecture me about consequences. Don't do that. Don't hide behind your detachment. You kissed me first. You said you imagined it. That it mattered. Katerina turned slowly. Her eyes were dangerous now, calm, sharp, and filled with something Livia couldn't quite name. I also said not to fall in love with me. And I said I wouldn't, Livia snapped. But it's not about me, Katerina. It's about you running like a coward the second things feel real. The air between them was thick with rage and heat. Katerina walked toward her slowly. Don't call me a coward. Then stop acting like one. You think you know me? I do. You know what I've had to do to get here? Katerina's voice was low now, shaking. You think I can afford to need someone? Everyone needs someone. Not me. Liar. Silence. Livia's chest rose and fell, eyes bright, defiant. Katerina's fingers twitched at her sides. She looked furious.
Exposed. Alive.
Get out, she whispered. Livia didn't move. You'll regret this. I already do. Livia's jaw clenched. Then she turned and walked out, the door slamming behind her. Katerina sank into her chair. Her hands were shaking again. She stared at the space where Livia had just stood. And for the first time in years, she wished she had said, "Please don't go." The silence after Livia slammed the door echoed longer than Katerina expected. For a woman who prided herself on being unaffected, Katerina was anything but. She sat frozen in her chair, her office washed in late afternoon shadows, and stared at the spot where Livia had stood, furious, radiant, alive. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever dared. And the worst part? Katerina had let her. She hadn't stopped her. She'd taken every word, every accusation, and let Livia walk out like it hadn't shattered something vital. Because it had. The ache in her chest wasn't foreign. Katerina knew loneliness well. But this was different. This felt like absence, like something specific had been torn out. She didn't go after her. Of course she didn't. Katerina Villari didn't chase. She commanded. She controlled. She cut off. But that night, alone in her penthouse, she couldn't work, couldn't drink, couldn't even think without Livia's voice crawling through her mind. "You're a coward. You'll regret this." Liar. She wasn't wrong. And Katerina hated that. She paced for hours. Checked her phone. Never typed. Never sent. Meanwhile, across the city, Livia lay in bed fully dressed, staring at her ceiling with clenched fists and a sick feeling in her chest. She hated that it still hurt. She hated that she cared. She hated that she had let herself hope. But she didn't regret what she said. Not one word. Katerina had made her feel small, disposable, like something dangerous to be shut out and ignored. But Livia wasn't fragile. She had survived worse. She would survive this. But her heart, stubborn, hopeful traitor that it was, didn't seem to know that yet. The next morning, Katerina's office was quiet. Too quiet. The air felt stale. The city's skyline blurred in the windows, but Katerina didn't move from her desk. She hadn't assigned Livia any meetings, hadn't summoned her, hadn't spoken to her since the fight. And Livia hadn't reached out either. Not even a single confirmed email. It was like she had erased herself from Katerina's world completely. Around noon, a soft knock broke the silence. Katerina looked up, expecting an assistant, maybe her CFO. But instead, it was HR, Ms. Villari, the woman said gently. "We received a notice this morning." Ms. Montero tendered her resignation. The world tilted.
What?
Effective immediately. She declined an exit interview. Katerina blinked. "She's gone." "Yes, ma'am." The door closed again, and Katerina's lungs stopped working. Livia was gone. Just like that. No confrontation. No dramatic farewell. No final word. She'd walked away from everything. From the job she excelled at, from the position she owned like no one else, from her. Katerina didn't move for a full hour. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Her mouth opened and closed with words that wouldn't come. She had pushed her away, and Livia had finally believed her. 2 days later, Livia sat in a cafe with a friend from college, trying to fake a smile. "So you really just left?" Marissa asked, wide-eyed. "Like, quick quit." "Yes," Livia replied, sipping her espresso. "I'm done." "But she was your boss." And Marissa lowered her voice. "Was it really that serious?" Livia looked down. Her heart clenched. It was about to be. "Do you miss her?" Livia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Back at the Villari building, everything ran as it always had on the surface. But everyone noticed the shift. Katerina was more distant, shorter-tempered, and no one dared mention Livia's name. Her replacement was efficient, polite, terrified, and completely invisible. Katerina barely looked at her. She went through motions, signed papers, gave orders, attended meetings, but her mind was never in the room.
It was always somewhere else.
Someone else. At night, she would sit by her window with a glass of untouched wine, staring out into a city that no longer felt like hers. She had everything. Still. Money.
Power. control.
But it all tasted like ash. On the sixth night without Livia, Katerina caved. She typed a message, then deleted it. Typed again. Katerina, I shouldn't have said what I said. I was scared, and I pushed you away.
Deleted.
Katerina, you were right. I am a coward. Deleted. Katerina, I miss you. Her finger hovered over send. She stared at the screen for a long, long time. Then she put the phone down and said nothing. It took a week for the buzz to start. Quiet at first, hallway whispers, sidelong glances in elevators, unfinished conversations that stopped the moment Katerina stepped into the room. Her name was always spoken with reverence. But now, something else tinged the silence. Curiosity.
Fear.
Suspicion. The absence of Livia Montero had become impossible to ignore. Meetings weren't the same. Katerina's new assistant, Mariana, was technically perfect, responsive, discreet, efficient, and yet somehow everything she wasn't supposed to be. She never anticipated Katerina's thoughts, never pushed back when a decision was reckless, never challenged her with a single glance. The office had gone back to the version of itself Katerina had always said she wanted. Cold, predictable, quiet, but it felt like a tomb. And Katerina hated it. Still, she pretended. She wore her best masks. She cut through negotiations like a scalpel, signed 5 new partnerships in 3 days, and pushed through a major acquisition with terrifying speed. On paper, she was thriving. In truth, she hadn't slept a full night in over a week. Her bed felt too big. Her world too hollow. And the worst part, the absolutely infuriating part, was that Livia hadn't called, hadn't messaged, hadn't tried, which could only mean one thing. She meant what she said. She was done. Katerina had lost her. Not just an assistant. Not just a kiss. She had lost the only person who'd ever seen through her walls and stayed. Until she didn't. On Friday morning, Katerina found herself staring at a news notification on her phone. Montero Consulting, former Volare executive assistant, launches boutique strategy firm. Her breath caught. She read the line 3 times. A consulting firm. Livia had launched her own company. From scratch.
Alone.
And already landing clients. Clients that Katerina recognized. High-level ones. A few that had once danced around Volare Global, but never committed. Now, they were signing with her. Katerina's stomach twisted, and it wasn't from jealousy. It was admiration.
Pride. Pain.
Livia hadn't disappeared. She'd risen. Without her. Later that day, in a skyscraper uptown, Livia sat in her brand new office, small, sun-drenched, minimalist, and watched the city with a strange mixture of nerves and satisfaction. She had 3 clients. A full inbox. A week of meetings ahead. And yet, Katerina haunted every quiet moment, every coffee order, every sharp thought she caught herself wanting to say out loud. She missed her.
Stupidly.
Painfully. But she refused to go back. She refused to crawl. Katerina had made her choice. And Livia was making hers. She would build something that belonged to her. She would prove that she wasn't someone to be discarded. On Sunday night, Katerina broke. She stood on the edge of her penthouse balcony, wind in her hair, phone in her hand. The city glowed beneath her. Somewhere, Livia was out there, breathing this same cold air, living a life Katerina was no longer part of. She opened her messages, typed one word. Katerina, congratulations.
Send.
Then stared, waiting. 1 minute.
5. 10.
No reply.
She deserved that.
Monday morning, Katerina was late to her meeting with the Asia-Pacific team. On purpose. She knew the entire boardroom would be full. Screens lit, faces tense, her name already spoken in a dozen worried tones. She walked in at exactly 9:07 a.m. All eyes turned. She didn't apologize. She never did. Let's begin, she said, setting her phone face down on the table. But she didn't hear half the presentation. She was too busy replaying the fact that Livia hadn't responded. Not even a thank you. Not even a go to hell. She wanted anger. She wanted something. She wanted her. Across the city, Livia stared at Katerina's message. Congratulations. That was all it said. No punctuation. No emotion. Just that one clipped word. But it wasn't nothing. It was a crack. A crack in the ice. Livia sat back in her chair, arms crossed, unsure of what she felt. Validation? Maybe. But mostly confusion. She hadn't expected Katerina to reach out. Not after everything. And definitely not with that. She wanted to ignore it. She almost did. But something about the cold simplicity of it made her fingers twitch. Against her better judgment, she replied. Livia, did you mean it? No answer. Not right away. But 15 minutes later, her phone lit up again. Katerina, yes. Livia stared. Her heart thudded once. Then again. Livia, that's not enough. Another pause. A long one. Katerina, I know. Livia locked her phone and turned away. She had work to do. She had a life to build. She couldn't wait for breadcrumbs. But she also couldn't stop her chest from aching at those two words. I know. They weren't enough. But they weren't nothing. The following days unfolded like a quiet war. Neither woman reached out again. There were no new messages, no phone calls, no surprise appearances. Just silence. But not the kind that meant nothing. It was the loaded kind. Every hour stretched tight with what they hadn't said. Katerina buried herself in work like it owed her something. Her schedule was merciless, filled with back-to-back meetings, endless reports, investor calls that bled into midnight. She was trying to suffocate the ache. But it never really went away. Her nights were still haunted. She'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, remembering Livia's voice, her laugh, the way she used to silently hand her coffee just the way she liked it without being asked. She missed her. It was a steady, maddening ache that no level of power or distraction could dull. But admitting that out loud still felt too dangerous. Across the city, Livia wasn't faring much better. Her firm was growing and quickly. She'd signed 2 new clients in a week. Her schedule was full, her inbox overflowing, and everyone kept congratulating her like she'd won something. And in many ways, she had. She'd left a place that stifled her. She'd built something of her own. She was free. But it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like holding her breath. Because none of this, not the success, not the independence, not the sharp suits and polished smiles, erased the way Katerina had looked at her that last night. Or the way she hadn't said anything when Livia walked away. It had been almost 2 weeks now. And still, Livia caught herself checking her phone more often than she'd ever admit. Waiting. For what? She didn't know. Katerina didn't do vulnerability.
She didn't beg.
She didn't chase. Livia knew that. And yet, part of her still hoped she might break her own rules. Just once. She didn't expect what came next. On a Thursday afternoon, Livia was finishing up a call when her receptionist buzzed in. You have a visitor, she said. No appointment. I'm booked until 5. Livia replied without looking up. She said you'd say that. But she also said you'd want to see her anyway. Livia froze. Slowly she stood. Her heart was hammering before she even reached the door. When she opened it, Katerina was standing there. Dark gray coat over a tailored suit, hair pinned back, expression unreadable, except for the storm in her eyes. Livia didn't move. What are you doing here? She asked, voice calm, even though her pulse was anything but. Katerina exhaled slowly. I thought about messaging you again. Then I realized I needed to look you in the eye when I said it. Said what? That I was wrong. Livia blinked. Wrong about what? About everything, Katerina said, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. About thinking I could just cut you out. About believing I didn't need you. About pretending what happened between us didn't matter. Her voice was low, strained, real. Livia shut the door behind her and crossed her arms. You don't get to show up after 2 weeks and expect me to forget how you treated me. I don't, Katerina said immediately. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I needed to tell you the truth. Livia studied her, eyes sharp. Why now? Because I saw the article. I saw your name. And I realized, I'm proud of you. But I hate watching you build something incredible without me in it. That landed like a punch. Livia looked away. You said not to fall in love with you. Katerina stepped closer. I said that because I knew I already was. And I didn't know how to handle it. Livia's breath caught. She hated that the words still hit so deep. Do you really expect this to change everything? She whispered. No, Katerina said. But I'd give anything for a chance to try. Silence stretched. Long trembling. Then Livia walked past her, toward the window, arms still folded. You hurt me, she said. I know. You shut me out. I was scared. So, what's different now? Katerina stepped behind her, but didn't touch her. I'm still scared, but I'd rather be terrified with you than empty without you. Livia closed her eyes. Her heart was screaming. Everything she'd wanted to hear was right here, finally, and yet all she could think about was how easily Katerina had let her go before. I don't know if I trust you, she said. Then don't, Katerina replied. Not yet, but let me earn it. Livia turned. Why now? Because I haven't slept since you left. Because I keep hearing your voice in rooms you're not in. Because I can't look at anyone else without wishing they were you. Her voice cracked then, just slightly. And because losing you was the only thing I've ever done that I can't fix. Unless you let me try. The silence was suffocating. Livia stepped closer. Just one breath between them now. You don't get to walk in here and make declarations like that and think it fixes everything. I don't think it fixes anything, Katerina whispered. I just think it's the first time I'm not lying to you. Or to myself. Livia stared at her. And finally, something cracked. Not in Katerina. In herself. Her guard, her pain, her fear. Because she could see it now. Katerina wasn't here, as the billionaire. She wasn't the cold CEO or the perfect strategist. She was just a woman, standing in front of the person she'd hurt, asking for a second chance she didn't know how to earn. And somehow, that was enough to make Livia take one step forward and say, You have one chance. Katerina's breath caught. Just one, Livia repeated. Don't waste it. Katerina nodded. She didn't smile.
She didn't speak.
She just reached out slowly, carefully, like she was afraid Livia might shatter. And when their hands met, it wasn't fire. It was quiet, steady,
real.
They didn't kiss. Not that day. Not when Katerina reached out and Livia let her. Not when their hands touched for the first time since everything shattered. It wasn't passion that passed between them. It was gravity. A pull. A silent, mutual understanding that what they were stepping into now was no longer flirtation, no longer tension disguised as power plays. This was fragile, exposed, and terrifyingly real. Livia didn't invite Katerina to stay. She didn't offer her coffee or small talk or warmth. She simply let her stand there for a few more seconds before pulling her hand away and saying, I'll call you. And Katerina nodded like that one sentence was the most precious thing she'd ever been given. 2 days passed. Livia didn't call. Not because she didn't want to, but because she needed to be sure. Of Katerina. Of herself. She kept replaying every word of that conversation. The way Katerina's voice had cracked, how her eyes didn't hold their usual armor, the trembling vulnerability beneath each admission. She had meant it. Livia felt that in her bones. But meaning something and changing were not the same. She'd give her a chance, one, but Katerina would have to meet her in the middle. On the third day, she did. It started with flowers. Not expensive orchids or rare arrangements flown in from another country. Just a small bouquet of fresh peonies, Livia's favorite, though Katerina had never once said she noticed. There was no note, just her name handwritten on the delivery tag. That same afternoon, a text came through. Katerina, dinner. Not a date. No pressure.
Just time.
You choose the place. Livia stared at the screen for a long minute before replying. Friday. 8 p.m. Eliseo. Katerina, I'll be there. And she was. Right on time. Livia walked into the quiet rooftop restaurant dressed in black, her hair down, skin glowing under the golden lights. She spotted Katerina instantly, seated at a corner table, not facing the entrance, no glass of wine in hand. That alone was enough to shake her. Katerina always drank at dinners. It was part of her ritual. But tonight, she looked like she wanted to be fully present. Livia approached slowly. Katerina stood. Don't. Livia cut in gently, sliding into the seat opposite her. Let's just talk. Katerina nodded, sitting down again. For the first few minutes, they spoke like strangers. Weather.
Work.
Headlines. Livia gave short answers. Katerina tried not to overstep. Until, finally, Katerina said, I haven't stopped thinking about the last time I saw you. Livia didn't reply. You were right, Katerina continued. About everything. I don't let people close. I weaponize distance. And when things feel too real, I destroy them before they can destroy me. Then why am I here? Livia asked, voice quiet. Katerina looked up. Because I don't want to destroy this. Not anymore. Livia's eyes softened slightly. But she didn't smile. You're used to getting what you want. Not this. Why me? Because you didn't care about my money. Or my image. You called me out when I was cruel, and you stayed when I was impossible. And somehow, in the middle of all that, you made me feel human again. That cracked something. Livia shifted in her seat, visibly struggling to hold her composure. I'm not a fantasy, she whispered. Neither am I, Katerina replied. I don't want perfect. I want real. Silence. Then Livia finally asked, Are you ready for real? I'm standing in front of it, aren't I? That made Livia smile.
Just barely.
One chance, she said again. Still stands. I know. They ate. Slowly. Carefully. But something shifted. Katerina didn't dominate the conversation. She didn't redirect emotions or close off when it got vulnerable. And Livia, she let herself laugh again.
Once.
Then again. By dessert, she was leaning slightly closer. Not much, but enough. After they paid, Katerina walked her to her car. It wasn't raining, but the night felt charged, like it might. They stopped by the driver's door. Katerina didn't move to touch her. She just looked at her like she was still learning how to believe this wasn't a dream.
Thank you, she said.
For showing up. Livia nodded. You did the same. Can I see you again? You'll have to earn that.
How?
Try being consistent. Katerina smiled. It was small, but it reached her eyes. I can do that. Livia opened the door, hesitated, then turned back. Good night, Katerina. Good night, Livia.
The door closed.
The car pulled away. Katerina watched until the headlights disappeared. Her chest felt tight again, but this time not from pain. It was something new, something careful. Hope. Katerina had never waited for anyone. Not in boardrooms, not in elevators, not even in love, though she'd never dared to use that word before. Waiting meant vulnerability. It meant relinquishing control. But ever since that rooftop dinner with Livia, she was learning to live inside the unfamiliar ache of anticipation. She checked her phone too often, typed out messages and deleted them, paused before calling, unsure if it was too soon, too much. But Livia had said it clearly. Consistency. And so Katerina forced herself to show up without smothering. A text every few days. A shared article. A small box of chocolate truffles delivered with no note, just the knowledge that Livia liked that specific brand from that specific cafe they used to walk past after meetings. Livia didn't respond every time, but when she did, it mattered. And when she didn't, Katerina didn't spiral. She waited. Quietly. Determined. And slowly, so slowly, things began to shift. A second dinner turned into a third. A call that began with logistics ended in soft laughter at midnight. An invitation to a gallery opening turned into 2 hours standing close but not touching, their arms brushing occasionally, each moment quietly rewiring everything they used to be. Livia was cautious. Measured. She asked hard questions. She pushed when Katerina defaulted to old patterns. And Katerina, to her own surprise, didn't pull away. She listened.
She apologized.
She tried. And for the first time in her life, trying didn't feel like weakness.
It felt like wanting.
Wanting her. One night, 2 weeks into this delicate rebuilding, Livia invited her into her apartment. It was a modest, elegant space, warm lighting, books everywhere, soft music playing low. Katerina stood by the doorway, unsure for the first time in years of what was expected of her. Livia took her coat and didn't say anything at first. She just walked into the kitchen and poured them each a glass of wine. "You're nervous," Livia said gently, handing her a glass. Katerina scoffed. "I'm not." "You are." Katerina hesitated.
Fine.
"I am." "Why?" "Because I don't know what happens next. That makes two of us." They sat on the couch, close, but not quite touching. The air between them buzzed with quiet tension, not the old kind, the kind laced with games and power. This was tender, earned. Livia turned toward her. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "If this falls apart, if we try and fail, are you going to shut down again?" Katerina looked at her, eyes steady.
No.
"I won't run this time." Livia stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, she reached out and placed her hand over Katerina's. "I want to believe you. Then let me prove it." The kiss was different this time. There was no firestorm, no teeth, no fury. It was soft,
Slow.
careful, like they were both afraid of ruining something sacred. Katerina's hands cupped Livia's jaw, and Livia's fingers slid into Katerina's hair, pulling her closer. The world narrowed to that moment. Warm lips, shallow breaths, the quiet sigh that escaped between them. When they pulled apart, Katerina rested her forehead against Livia's. "I'm not good at this," she whispered. "Neither am I," Livia replied. "But I want to be." Katerina's chest tightened. "Then let's be bad at it together. Until we're better." That night, they didn't sleep together. They curled up on the couch, limbs tangled, wine forgotten. They talked. About fears. About boundaries. About what they wanted. It was awkward at times. Uncomfortable. Vulnerable. And it was perfect. By the time the sun began to rise, Katerina had fallen asleep with her head resting in Livia's lap, and Livia was stroking her hair with the kind of tenderness she didn't know she still possessed. For the first time in weeks, neither of them felt alone. But not everyone was happy. At the office, rumors began to circulate. Investors asked subtle questions. The media caught wind of Livia's consulting firm and started digging. One article hinted at something between the two women, a former assistant and the most untouchable billionaire in the city. It wasn't explosive yet, but Katerina saw the direction. And for the first time, she didn't flinch. She called a press strategist, rewrote the narrative, took control of the message before it could be twisted. "We'll release a statement if needed," she told her team. "Nothing scandalous. Just the truth." "And what is the truth?" someone asked. Katerina looked straight at them. "That she's not just a former employee. She's someone I deeply respect. And if I'm lucky, someone who'll be part of my future." The room went quiet. No one questioned her after that. When Livia read the article a few days later, a respectful profile on her firm, with a single, quiet quote from Katerina about integrity and trust, she didn't cry. But something broke open in her chest. A piece of her that had braced for betrayal finally began to soften.
She called Katerina that night.
"You didn't have to say that," she said. Katerina's voice was warm. "I wanted to."
Why?
"Because I'm not hiding anymore. Not from them. Not from myself. And definitely not from you." Livia closed her eyes. "Then maybe it's time I stop hiding too." Katerina's voice dropped to a whisper. "Does that mean what I think it means?" "It means I want to see where this goes. For real." A beat. Then Katerina asked, "Come over?" "I'm already on my way." There was no announcement. No official press release. No red carpet moment where they held hands or kissed for the cameras. What happened between Katerina and Livia didn't begin with spectacle. It began with silence. With lingering glances over shared breakfasts. With fingertips brushing as one handed the other a mug of coffee. with stolen smiles in the back seat of private cars and quiet conversations that stretched deep into the night. But what started softly began to take shape, and quickly. The rhythm of their lives shifted. Katerina started blocking off her evenings, something her staff had never seen before. Livia began scheduling fewer late-night consultations. The city kept moving, fast and indifferent, but the two of them carved a space where time slowed down. They never defined it. Not officially. There was no label, no ultimatum, no what are we? Conversation. But they both knew. Katerina knew it when she walked into her penthouse and saw Livia's jacket on the back of her chair. Livia knew it when Katerina texted landed safe after a day trip, a simple sentence that carried more weight than the 20-minute calls she used to ignore from past lovers. One night, after 3 weeks of this slow, cautious unraveling, they found themselves at a quiet restaurant, the same one from their first almost date. The staff remembered them, but this time, no one whispered. Katerina had made sure of that. She held Livia's hand under the table. Not for show, not to prove anything.
Just because she wanted to.
Livia had hesitated at first. The moment their fingers intertwined, her eyes darted around, checking for stares, for judgment. But Katerina leaned in and said softly, "Let them look." And just like that, Livia stopped caring. The food arrived and they ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Livia teased Katerina about how she still refused to use emojis. Katerina raised an eyebrow and said, "I pay someone to decode tone for me." Livia laughed so hard, she nearly choked on her wine. But later, after dessert, as they walked through the quiet streets of the city, the tone changed. Katerina stopped in front of a boutique flower shop, the window filled with soft pink roses. "Do you like those?" she asked. Livia shrugged. "They're pretty." Katerina stepped inside. Moments later, she came back with a single rose. She handed it to Livia without a word. Livia stared at it for a long moment before saying, "You're not the person I thought you were." Katerina didn't ask what that meant. She just replied, "Neither are you." That night, they made love for the first time. Not a rushed, desperate collision like so many first times. It was patient, intentional. Katerina undressed Livia slowly, reverently, her hands trembling slightly as she explored every curve, every scar, every inch she had once only imagined. Livia kissed her like she was rediscovering something she thought she'd never get back: trust. Skin against skin, breathless whispers, fingers clutching sheets and hips and hair. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, laughter between gasps, one clumsy bump of the head that turned into a giggle fit. But when it was over, when they lay tangled in white sheets and quiet exhaustion, there was no space left between them. No masks. No distance. Just Katerina tracing shapes into Livia's shoulder and whispering, "You scare the hell out of me." Livia kissed her collarbone. Good. For a while, things were good. Stable. But love, especially love between two women used to keeping walls up, was never smooth for long. The trouble started in the form of a new potential deal. A massive merger with a rival tech firm. The kind of partnership that could double Volare Global's market reach. But there was a problem. The rival company had once tried to poach Livia. And Livia hadn't forgotten how ruthlessly they had treated her during negotiations. Katerina brought up the merger one night over dinner, casual. "It's early stage," she said. "Nothing signed." Livia's face went cold. "You're considering it? It's business. It's personal. It was for you, not for me." Livia leaned back, wine untouched. "That company humiliated me, Katerina. They called me a glorified secretary in front of a boardroom of men." "I know," Katerina said gently. "But this deal, so that's what it takes. Money over dignity." The room went still. Katerina's jaw tightened. "This is what I do. You know that." "And I thought I could be okay with it," Livia said, voice breaking. "But if being with you means watching you make alliances with people who step on women like me, then maybe I don't know how to be in this with you." Katerina didn't answer right away. She looked down, her fingers wrapped tight around her fork. "You think I haven't changed," she said finally. I think you're trying. But some parts of you are still wired to survive at any cost. Livia stood slowly. I love you, but I'm not going to lose myself again for someone else's empire. She left. No slammed doors. No dramatic exits. Just quiet, trembling pain. Katerina sat alone in that restaurant for a long time, the untouched rose from earlier still resting beside her plate. That night, she didn't go home. She walked the city streets until morning, questioning everything, wondering if love was worth changing for, and if she was even capable of it. Katerina didn't return to her penthouse the morning after the fight. She didn't go to the office either. Instead, she sat alone on a quiet bench in the city's botanical garden, a place she hadn't visited in years. Mist clung to the grass. The sky was heavy with clouds, and the world smelled like something softer she couldn't name. She'd spent her entire life building systems that kept her safe, powerful, untouchable. But now, those systems were collapsing. Because the truth was terrifying, she loved Livia Montero. And she had hurt her. Again. This wasn't just about a deal, it was about values, about who Katerina chose to be. She pulled out her phone and, instead of calling Livia, made a call to her board. Her voice was calm, sharp. We're pulling out of the merger negotiations, she said. Effective immediately. Silence. Ms. Villari, with respect, we're not in the business of partnering with men who belittle women, she said, and ended the call. Across the city, Livia wasn't expecting to hear from Katerina. Not after the way she'd walked out. She'd woken up with a hollow in her chest, certain she'd done the right thing, but hurting anyway. She was in a client meeting when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Villari Global withdraws from merger talks with Velmentech. The article quoted Katerina. We believe in partnerships built on integrity and mutual respect. This deal no longer aligns with our values. Livia stared at the screen, stunned. Then her phone vibrated again. Katerina, no empire is worth losing you. I'm trying. Not just for us.
For me.
For the woman I want to become. Livia didn't reply right away. Hours passed. Then she typed. Don't become her for me. Do it for you. And maybe we'll find each other again in the middle. Katerina, I'll be there. No matter how long it takes. That weekend, they didn't speak. But something had changed. On Monday, Livia received an unexpected email, a formal proposal from a Villari department she once helped design. A new women's leadership initiative. And a request for Livia to lead it externally. It wasn't from Katerina, but Livia knew. This wasn't manipulation. It was trust. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, and clicked accept. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. They didn't rush. Livia focused on the new project. Katerina stayed in the background, present but quiet. No pressure. No declarations. Just one day, Livia came home and found a small package on her doorstep. Inside, a fountain pen, the one she once admired during a meeting, long ago. The card said, for every contract you'll write, that changes the rules. Her hands shook. That night, she sent one message. Livia, come over. Katerina arrived half an hour later. No suit, no performance. Just Katerina. They didn't talk at first. Livia stepped aside, let her in, and they stood in silence until their hands found each other. That night, they curled into each other in bed, quiet and whole. And in the safety of that stillness, Livia whispered, I love you. Katerina closed her eyes. I love you more. You don't have to. I do.
I just didn't know how until you showed me.
And for the first time, neither of them felt afraid. Katerina had never known peace like this. Not the kind bought in private jets or silence in a penthouse at the top of the world. This was different. It was slower, quieter. It was Livia's head resting on her shoulder while the television played something neither of them were watching. It was the sound of ice clinking in a glass she hadn't poured herself. It was waking up before sunrise and staying in bed because Livia's leg was tangled in hers.
It was soft.
She had never been soft. But with Livia, she was learning. Their relationship was no longer fragile, but it wasn't invincible either. It lived in the space between trust and effort, and both of them had learned the hard way how quickly one could crack without the other. Livia still guarded pieces of herself. She wasn't the type to fall all at once again, not after being hurt. Katerina didn't push. She gave room. And in return, Livia gave something Katerina had never earned from anyone before: her presence.
Full.
Intentional.
Honest. They still had separate apartments.
Separate lives. But they were building something between them now, a rhythm. Katerina started attending events she once ignored, only because Livia wanted her there. Livia started letting Katerina see parts of her world she had previously kept hidden: her friends, her fears, the way she spoke to herself in the mirror on hard days. One night, 3 weeks into this new phase, they hosted a private dinner for the women involved in the leadership initiative. Livia insisted on using a cozy venue downtown, not some marble-floored monstrosity with an exclusive guest list. Katerina didn't argue. She stood beside Livia the entire night, letting her lead, watching the way she commanded a room not with power, but with conviction. Pride swelled in her chest, not for what Livia had built, but for who she had always been. After the event, they returned to Livia's apartment. Katerina kicked off her heels, sighed, and flopped onto the couch. "You're terrifying when you speak in public," she said. Livia raised an eyebrow. Terrifying? In the best way. Livia leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smile tugging at her lips. "You were quiet tonight. I didn't need to be loud. You had it handled. That's new for you." "So is falling in love," Katerina said without hesitation. Livia blinked, momentarily thrown. Then her voice softened. "Is that what this is? This is me, not being able to imagine a day where I don't see your face, where I don't hear your voice, where I don't find a reason to come back to you. So yes, I think it's that." Livia walked over slowly. She sat beside her, not touching her yet. "Do you still get scared?" "Every day," Katerina said. "But I've stopped letting fear make my decisions for me." They sat there in silence for a while, and it was enough. Until it wasn't. Because the next day brought the kind of storm neither of them had seen coming. Early in the morning, Katerina received a phone call.
Press.
Someone had leaked internal documents from Volare Global, specifically about the cancelled merger with Velmentech. Emails. Private calls.
Quotes.
Most of it was standard corporate material, but a few lines made direct reference to Livia. One executive, in a dismissive tone, had referred to her as the CEO's new distraction. It exploded. The article went live within the hour, with her name and photo and Katerina's. Headlines danced with phrases like abuse of power and romance or retaliation. Katerina's blood ran cold. She read every line, jaw clenched, vision tunneling. And then she saw the worst part: the story had legs. Commentators, influencers, even rival CEOs began picking it apart. The same world that had once cheered Katerina's dominance was now sharpening its knives, accusing her of compromising her business for a relationship. And Livia hadn't even seen it yet. She called her immediately. "Hey," Livia answered, half asleep. "Have you seen the news?" Katerina asked. "No, why? You're going to?" "Don't go online." "Not yet. I'm coming to you." "Kat, what?" "Please wait for me." 15 minutes later, she was at Livia's door. Her face was unreadable. Livia opened it, confused, and Katerina handed her the tablet. "Read it," she said. Livia scrolled, and with each paragraph, her expression hardened. When she reached the part about being a distraction, she lowered the device.
"Wow."
Katerina stepped closer. "I'm pulling every legal string I can. This leak was internal. It's traceable. My PR team is already preparing a response, and Stop." Livia's voice was quiet, but firm. "Do you believe any of this?"
"No. God, no."
Then let them talk." Katerina froze. "What?" Livia met her gaze, fire behind her eyes. "Let them talk. We've already fought for this. If we try to hide now, if we react like we're guilty, we give them control." This could hurt you. They already tried. Years ago.
You saw what they said about me then.
And I survived. Now I'm stronger. Now I'm not alone. Katerina's throat tightened. I'll stand by you, she whispered. I know, Livia said, stepping forward, placing her hand over Katerina's heart. But more importantly, I'll stand by us. That afternoon, Livia made a post on her firm's official page. Short, powerful. I am not anyone's distraction. I am not a liability. I am not quiet. I am a strategist. A leader. And yes, a woman in love. If that makes me dangerous to the old world, then so be it. The post went viral. Support flooded in, not just from women but from professionals, former clients, even industry giants who had once doubted her. Katerina watched from her office, stunned and humbled. This wasn't a woman who needed protection. This was a woman who had given her the strength to change, and now stood tall beside her. That night, when they reunited, Katerina didn't bring flowers. She didn't bring apologies. She just brought herself. Quiet.
Real.
And when she walked through Livia's door, she said only one thing. You saved me. Not just now. Always. Livia stepped into her arms. Then don't waste what I gave you. Never, Katerina whispered. And she meant it. Katerina watched the industry shift in real time. The scandal that should have buried them, the one designed to discredit Livia and humiliate her publicly, had done the opposite. It had ignited something. Not just in the press or the business world, but in people. Executives sent anonymous support. Clients who had once hesitated now leaned in. And women everywhere, from interns to CEOs, began to share the article, the quote, the photo of Livia standing alone at her office window in that sharp black blazer and soft, defiant smile. A woman in love. If that makes me dangerous to the old world, then so be it. It became a rallying cry. The kind of phrase that ended up on screensavers, pinned to office walls, whispered in closed-door meetings where women had spent years being silenced. Livia had never wanted that kind of attention, but she didn't run from it either. She handled the interviews with grace, clarity, and zero performance. She never once used Katerina's name as a shield. She didn't have to. Her strength spoke for itself. And Katerina? She stayed quiet, present, supportive. She didn't try to take the spotlight. She didn't correct the headlines. She simply made space, and in doing so, proved to everyone that she was no longer the woman who needed to dominate every conversation. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Inside her own company, something began to shift. Her board meetings became less one-sided. Her leadership team started to speak up more. New hires, more diverse, more outspoken, stepped into roles Katerina had once guarded too closely. She wasn't becoming less powerful. She was becoming better. More human. More respected. One afternoon, during a quarterly review meeting, one of the senior partners leaned across the table and said, "This version of you, it's working." Katerina smiled. It's not a version. It's the real thing. That night, she went to Livia's apartment carrying nothing but her own quiet joy. Livia opened the door, barefoot, wine in hand, an unreadable look on her face. "You're glowing," she said. "New moisturizer," Katerina replied dryly. Livia laughed and stepped aside. "Come in, CEO of the Year." "I'm serious," Katerina said once the door closed. "Everything's different now." Livia handed her a glass. "Is it?"
Yes.
"And it's not just business." Katerina walked to the window, staring at the skyline. "I never thought I'd be the kind of person someone could actually believe in. But now, when they look at me, they see you too." Livia's voice was quiet. "And does that bother you?"
No.
"It grounds me." She turned. "But I didn't come here to talk about optics." "Then why are you here?" Katerina took a breath. "Because I want to talk about next steps. Not in PR. Not in damage control. In us." Livia's heart skipped. "I'm listening." Katerina reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a key. Not to her apartment. Not to her office. But to a new place, a space she'd bought quietly, renovated without saying anything, waited to share until it meant something. "It's ours," she said. "A place that doesn't belong to either of our pasts. Not mine. Not yours. Somewhere we can start fresh." Livia stared at the key, her lips parting but no sound coming. "I'm not asking you to move in tonight," Katerina added quickly. "Or tomorrow. Or next week. I'm just saying if this is what you want, if we're really building something, I want to give us room to grow without ghosts watching us from every corner." Livia stepped forward, took the key, held it between her fingers like it might burn. Then she looked up. "Can I see it?" Katerina nodded, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours.
Now. Now.
They drove together in silence. The car moved through the city like it had a pulse of its own, neon and soft shadows stretching across the dashboard as they turned onto a quiet street in a residential district far from skyscrapers. The building was modern, clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a small rooftop garden. Katerina led her inside. No doorman, no staff, just them. The apartment was empty. Light poured in from tall windows. The hardwood floors gleamed under their footsteps. Livia walked slowly, taking it all in, the open kitchen, the sunlit reading corner, the two office spaces on opposite sides of the layout. "You thought of everything," she said. "I thought of you." Katerina stopped behind her. "This isn't a gift. It's a step. One you can take with me. Or not. I'll love you either way." Livia turned. Her eyes were soft, unreadable. "Say it again." "I'll love you either way." A long silence stretched between them. Then Livia stepped forward.
Close.
Closer. Until there was nothing between them but breath. "I want this," she whispered. "I want us. I want to wake up in a place we chose. I want to argue over furniture and burn pancakes on Sunday and kiss you before every meeting. I want all of it." Katerina didn't kiss her.
Not yet.
She just smiled, slow, radiant, undone.
Then stay.
"Start tonight." "And tomorrow?" Livia asked. "Every day after," Katerina said. "For as long as you want me." Forever sounds good. And this time, they didn't hold back. The kiss was deep, sure, filled with everything they hadn't said, not because they were afraid, but because they finally didn't need to say it. They were building something that didn't require translation. That night, they didn't fall asleep out of exhaustion or comfort. They stayed awake, side by side, in a new bed, in a new home, watching the city from their own corner of the world. Not hers. Not Livia's. Theirs. The city woke up slowly that morning, but inside the apartment that now belonged to both of them, the world had already changed. Katerina stirred first. She wasn't used to waking up next to someone not like this, not with limbs tangled and heart unguarded. For a moment, she simply watched Livia sleep. There was a softness to her that only surfaced in these rare, quiet hours. Katerina traced a finger along her jaw, stopping just short of her lips. She could have stayed like that all morning.
She almost did.
But Livia opened her eyes and smiled. Small, sleepy, devastating. "Are you watching me again?" "Always," Katerina whispered. "Obsessed," Livia murmured, eyes closing again. "Only with you." They didn't move right away. Didn't rush into routines or check their phones or make coffee. They stayed under the covers, warm and weightless, suspended in the stillness of, finally, having what they'd fought so hard to build. Later, over breakfast, Katerina burned the toast. Livia teased her for it. They laughed too loud. The world began to creep back in. Messages, meetings, decisions. But none of it touched them the way it used to. The chaos was still there, but the center had shifted. Now they had each other. Weeks passed. Then months. Their lives continued, but they moved differently now. Katerina still ran an empire. Livia still led her own growing firm. But they didn't orbit around ambition anymore. They walked beside it, together. Livia's leadership initiative expanded internationally, with Katerina's silent backing and full respect. The two women, once headlines of scandal, became examples of evolution, of power rewritten through vulnerability, of success without sacrifice. Katerina no longer feared public perception. She didn't need to. People could whisper all they wanted, but she went home to Livia. She woke up to a world where her power was no longer a fortress. It was a bridge. Livia, in turn, embraced her influence. Not to prove anything, but to create something bigger than herself. She mentored. She spoke. She built platforms for women who once stood where she stood, overlooked, underestimated, burning quietly. They never sought attention, but it came anyway. One evening, they were invited to an award gala, Livia as a keynote speaker, Katerina as an honored guest. They arrived separately, as usual. But when Livia took the stage and saw Katerina standing at the back of the room, arms crossed, pride in her eyes, everything else disappeared. There was a time, Livia said into the microphone, voice steady, when I believed love and ambition couldn't coexist. That to rise, I had to harden. That vulnerability was a cost I couldn't afford. But then someone taught me that strength isn't always loud. That power isn't dominance. That love doesn't weaken, it anchors. The room was silent. Then, slowly, applause built. Katerina didn't clap. She just stood there, full of the kind of feelings she'd spent a lifetime avoiding. When the event ended, Livia found her outside near the valet, moonlight catching the sharp lines of her jaw. You cried, Livia said, teasing. I did not. Your eyes were suspiciously shiny. That was the lighting. Sure it was. Katerina stepped closer. That was beautiful. I meant every word. I know. I love you, Livia said softly. I love you more, Katerina replied. They didn't kiss. Not yet. The world was watching. But they didn't care. On a quiet Sunday, they finally moved into their new place fully. No more back and forth. No more toothbrushes in 2 locations.
It rained all day.
Boxes everywhere. Pizza on the floor. Music playing from a speaker that refused to connect properly. Livia wore one of Katerina's oversized sweaters. Katerina looked like a storm in sweatpants. They danced in the kitchen, anyway. Offbeat.
Clumsy.
Laughing. Later that night, as they lay in bed, tired, happy, full, Katerina turned to her and said, You were right.
About what?
Love doesn't weaken us. It makes everything else finally make sense. Took you long enough, Livia teased. I'm slow, but I'm thorough. That's one way to put it. Katerina reached into the drawer, pulled something out. Livia froze. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't flashy. It was simple, elegant. A ring. Delicate, silver, familiar. Before you say anything, Katerina said, voice calm but trembling, this isn't a proposal. Livia raised an eyebrow. No. It's a promise. That I'm not going anywhere. That even when it gets hard, even when we drive each other insane, I'll still choose you. Every day. She held it out. Wear however you want. Left hand, right hand, chain around your neck. Just know that when I see it, I'll know I belong to you. Livia didn't speak. She just reached out, slowly, took the ring, and slid it onto her finger. It's not a proposal, she said, but I accept. Katerina kissed her then, not for the first time, not for the last, but in a way that sealed everything. The fights, the longing, the growth,
the love.
And when they fell asleep that night, they weren't 2 women learning how to be together anymore. They were simply home. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.